right. Welcome back to No Cookies for You, everyone. Amanda and Derek again with cookies in hand. Today, we're going to talk about how AI is changing what we govern and how it's changing how and what we govern. And talking through different use cases, we talked for 25 minutes before the call and didn't record it. And I thought it was a really thoughtful conversation. So I hit record and hopefully we'll weave some of what we already discussed because we're both very passionate about this topic and we leverage AI, but I think there's different considerations. So welcome back and let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Welcome back as well. Amanda, thanks for teeing it up. As usual, right? We always kind of do a cookie review, and today I've got Oreo Thin Mints. So, big Oreo fan and excited to dig into it. But Amanda, do you have anything special for us today?
Yeah, of course I have something special. Another thing from Crumble. This is a pumpkin pie cookie. So it's kind of like pumpkin filling inside I took a bite because I got a little anxious. So if you're watching this on YouTube, it's like thick pumpkin filling. Yeah, it's supposed to be, it's actually quite tasty. So
What is that on top? Just whipped cream?
yeah, it's like, no, it's like a cream cheese frosting, like a little, it's supposed to look like whipped cream, but if you put whipped cream on it, it's just going to melt and be gross if it's not like an icing of sorts. So, um, yeah, it's pretty great.
Awesome. Excuse me. Awesome to hear. So, Amanda, why don't you tell us how, AI has changed how you're, approaching a privacy program and how it's kind of helping you, govern things and how it's become really like almost like a Venn diagram of privacy and AI.
Yeah, this is actually a conversation that I had with at Trust Week, just last week with a One Trust executive. And we were talking through this very topic. So I'm really excited because now we can record it for people who missed Trust Week in San Francisco. So let's start with I'd like for people to take away a couple of tidbits on how, if they're not using AI, how they can start thinking about using AI, and maybe this will spur some ideas. Um, and if you're not using it, just experiment. Start with deep research. Ask it a few questions. Do that sort of thing to kind of dip your toes in. But I use AI all the time. So I talked in our last episode about how I used it to evaluate a SQL query. So I put in Enterprise Chat GPT, I put the SQL query of what the data share was doing, and it told me what that SQL was doing for the use case. So that's one way we've used it. But we are also starting to I'm also starting to, think about using it in assessment analysis and disposition, taking that like manual assessment reviews and having AI do a preliminary assessment and maybe at some point um, approve low risk activities, right? Just because now with AI, we're getting so many use cases. It's really hard to manage. And I think we are rethinking about what we ask and what is considered high risk or low risk. But we are using this really cool tool called DPAI that just came to market. This is something that Derek's company built. So I'm going to let Derek, can you talk about DPAI and what it is, how it works?
Yeah, sure thing, Amanda, and thank you for teeing that up. So DPAI is a custom API endpoint that is, customized specifically for a business. All right, so everyone's is a little bit different. It's in a privatized container, and it can be customized based on what regulations you need to be compliant for. It can be customized based on your policies. You have like a privacy by design type policy, or cookie policies, your privacy notice, maybe even security policies. And what it does in a nutshell is it'll review an assessment for you, whether it's in whatever format, right? It can be customized based on what system you're using, as long as you can make an API call to it. And what's nice about it is it does a overall summary, of that privacy risk assessment project or service or initiative that you're working on. It also provides a conclusion for you, right? To give you insight of like, hey, this is how I feel about this project. Here's some privacy risk associated with it. And also do analysis of each question and response, to kind of let you know how it's approaching answering that question. And what's nice about it too is that it'll give you like recommendations for remediation, what kind of controls you might want to have in place. And I really think of it as kind of doing 80% of the work up front. And then once it does its review, that way, the next 20% is that human intervention. So at least gives you, it's almost like a first kind of gate or door of a review, and allows the reviewer then to come in and, use that as, additional guidance, right? To help you, decide if you want to approve or reject the project and evaluate like how risky it can be. So that was a lot, but Amanda, that makes sense and kind of a good description
Yeah,
of what it does.
yeah, and I really like the question analysis part because that is the one of the things that have always confused me and made me a little unsure about AI. I'm like, how did it get to this answer? So I love the question analysis feature because it takes it question by question and it tells you exactly how it derived or the approach that it took to derive the recommendation. Um, and so that has been super handy, so far. So I'm really excited to like keep keep building it. Um, Another thing I'm thinking about it that I didn't mention up front is having a ask privacy chatbot to help with filling out assessments, right? So you can ask the because a lot of people get stuck. I live and breathe this every day, so it's easy for me to answer those questions. A regular business person doesn't necessarily understand what you're asking. And so I think an AI chatbot could help with like help explain it in different ways and to result in like the answer that we need. Um, so I've built, you can do this. You don't have to like have a super complex system, but Copilot, I have created a Copilot agent that I'm testing right now, to do some research, just it's grounded on all of the US privacy laws
Hmm.
and, the company privacy policies. So I'm using that for my own, as my own personal assistant, because now there are so many laws. It was really easy to keep track before. Now it's impossible to keep track of the nuances for every law. So I use that, and I'm hoping at some point we can make it available to the broader company to leverage, right? So everyone can start thinking about privacy in the way that the law tells us we have to think about privacy, and in a way that us privacy professionals are applying it. So that's just another way of like how we govern. It opens up a lot of possibilities. So from that perspective, I'm super excited because AI opens up like a world of possibilities that we previously didn't have with a small team. So,
Yeah, I think something that we talked about a little bit before this call is, from a data privacy, being safe, security perspective, like some of the challenges of information being entered in, that's being sent to the model. And really like the conversation we had. And maybe you can share like what you think some of the challenges are. And then, I can express, some of the things that we're doing, even with DPAI and, some of the stuff that we're thinking about.
so this comes to like what we govern.
Mhm.
So I think that a lot of from what I have heard, a lot of privacy teams are getting AI thrown into the mix. And so now we have to we have to put our privacy hat on and our AI hat on. And they have different risks and regulations. With privacy, it's like personal information. It's all around personal information. But AI, it's more aligned with the intention of the model, like what the use case, what the model is doing. So, um, and how privacy and AI overlap. So, for example, I always like to use the use case of someone takes a pre-employment test and they get a score for that pre-employment test. Um, an AI model consumes the score. There's AI only gets the score and then says, yeah, this person is hireable, or how much they get paid, or you know, based on just that score. If there's no human involvement in that, that could trigger, definitely um, profiling, automated decision making, right? So those sorts of privacy provisions in laws, because it's all about not these AI laws and even privacy laws are about like not doing harm. And so if you're denying someone employment or determining how much they get paid with an AI model, that's harmful. And so I think those are the use cases we have to be super careful of. Another, thing we discussed at Trust Week is people and I see it. People trust AI models more than they trust humans. So, Derek, if you were to ask me, you know, personal details, I may not want to share those with you, right? But if an AI model, say I'm applying for a loan, and we were talking about this. So I use an AI model to, or some sort of banking firm uses an AI model to help me fill out a loan application. So I answer the questions, but then I divulge that I'm going through a divorce, that my kids, dropping out of school, and he's good. Like, I mean, just all kinds of things that I wouldn't tell another person, but I'm for whatever reason compelled to tell this AI model. I know people who put their diagnoses into Chat GPT to, to see if that would give them a different answer than their doctor. Like, so this is just people seem to trust the model, but they're not thinking about where is this data going? Where is this being stored? Um, and so I think from a practitioner perspective, we have to think about, because we can't control the data entry, but we can control how it's stored and used and protected. So now this brings another set of challenges because people trust AI models. They put in all kinds of information. How do we protect that, or use data minimization to not use policies, retention policies, masking, privacy enhancing technology to protect any information that we were inadvertently given, even though we tell them not to enter our personal information, but they do it anyways. So inaction is not a good approach, but it's really figuring out how to manage this new normal. And so we have a few ideas, but Derek, like, do you want to talk about how DPAI is helping kind of manage that piece for data minimization?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, the way we have it built is a little bit easier for us because it's not a chat model where you're having, a full-blown conversation. Um, we like to think of it as just like a kind of a one-time task, right? When it's reviewing the assessment. So what we're doing is we're cleaning all the data before actually sending it to the model. So think of things like people's names, email addresses, um, your business name, for example, right? So we want to clean that stuff out and kind of mask it, before sending it in. Um, Kind of outside of that, and what you spoke to about like chat models and like, how do you clean that before sending it, especially if you're writing a paragraph about, something that's going on in your life, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just, some stuff that like, we've been thinking about and, you know, you and I discussed, and, I'm not sure what that answer is right away. But that's just one of the things we're doing with, DPAI is, really cleaning the data out before making sure that it's in like, very private container, in a virtual private network, and um, strict, API keys and all that stuff. Um, Something else, we talked about this too, maybe switching gears a little bit, is the idea of like, AI deletion request for, these kind of big service
Mm-hmm.
providers. So, hey, Chat GPT, I've had an account with you for a while. How can I put in some kind of request to, delete maybe every conversation that I've had? And, you know, I have some thoughts just from my experience of like, how would you do that operationally,
Yeah.
within the business, and, you know, identifying like, okay, where's all of the conversations that Amanda had, and, how do we delete that? Um, so it's interesting,
Yeah.
to think about and where it's going. And I would love to see something like that. I think it would kind of reduce some of my, I don't know if it's anxiety, but like I would feel better to know that like, hey, if I ever wanted to, I could delete every conversation that I've had with, an AI model.
Yeah. It's so complex, and I feel like it really depends on how you're using Chat GPT, because I know they have put an agentic capability, and now you can log in, and I'm really unclear about, it seems like it's potentially going, anything that you put into it, an agentic, their Chat GPT agent is not contained to, if you're using an enterprise license, not contained to that enterprise license because it's doing more complex things. And so I think there's a lot of questions around that, um, because I don't know how you have it unlearn something. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting point. But I also want to call out what you said about removing company information, any unnecessary information. That's good data minimization practices, right? So we're not sending, it's not going, if you sending a company name is, though it's a private container. So if it did get sent, it would be secured, but not sending it in general is a good idea, because it doesn't change the outcome for an assessment, right? You don't necessarily need to send any company information, um, because it just creates risk with no benefits, right? So I think that is really smart, and thinking about data minimization in the right way, and truly privacy by design, right? So DPI is data privacy, artificial intelligence. So
Mhm. Yeah.
so it's really it's doing privacy by design. Um, how
Yeah.
can how can folks find out more about DPAI?
Yeah. Sure thing. We're on LinkedIn now. Um, DPAI, follow us, reach out to us, send us a message. If you're interested or want more information, want a demonstration, like more than happy to help. Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out.
Awesome. Any tips on people becoming AI literate?
From hey, I'm just using it like on
Yeah,
a daily basis,
yeah.
or um,
How do they, if they're not using AI, how can they start to use AI? And yeah, like, what, I mean, I know what my answer is. I asked ChatGPT how to get up to speed on ChatGPT. And when people ask me, and then send it a lesson plan that ChatGPT made. Uh, but what are some other things that people can do to start learning and using AI?
yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the first things that really stood out to me when I started using it 2 years ago is when you're asking it a question, yes, you have to keep in mind that it's a machine. And sometimes when you're using certain words in a certain way, like another human would understand, like what you actually mean, but a computer will kind of, I guess, take it at face value.
Literal, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's gotten a lot better about that, especially the last couple of months. But just keep in mind, like, it is a program, and if you ask it very like simple steps and not use like a lot of slang, um, that's one thing I would suggest to folks. And um, another thing too, right? Because we're in the privacy space, is like I never will like divulge anything that I feel is something about me. or like maybe sensitive information. So I'm always very weary about putting that kind of stuff in there. Um, so there, if there's something that, maybe I'm looking for like a medical diagnosis or something, like I won't use AI to do that. Like I guess I'll just use like Google search, for example, um, which they're probably storing at some capacity
Right.
anyway.
They
I,
are that they're storing it.
yeah.
Um, I maybe incognito mode.
Yeah, I use incognito mode quite a bit. And I think a second thing too is like I use it as like kind of a first line of research. Like I'll do that, and then I'll also try to find like a legitimate art
Totally.
online, or even better if it's in a physical book, um, especially like the privacy program management book. Like that's
Oh
my
man.
like holy grail book. Um, so always like, when I have a question that's related to that, I may use Chat GPT, but then I'll also have the book as well,
Yeah.
just to get the, I can't remember what they call it, in like linear learning or something. I think it's some like legal term that lawyers do when they're researching, where they use multiple different resources, which we all should be doing. Um, but yeah, those are just some of my tips for using it.
Yeah, I'm gonna just build on that. So I use it to point me in the right direction, right? If I need to like I ask it to cite the sources for me, maybe cite them in a table or whatever I need. But then I can dive into maybe I sent an email on this topic. I want to see the email because I don't necessarily trust AI's interpretation of the whole, it doesn't have the whole context, right? But if I used it the other day for something that I was need to deliver for work, and it had the context of my email, but I'm like, I want to know about this topic and cite me the different sources where you're pulling from so I can look into those myself. Um, so yeah, it kind of points me in the right direction. It saves me time without having to dig through hundreds of thousands of email, a lot of data. It points me in the right direction quickly, so then I can use my brain and do some thinking. So yeah, all good ideas. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun journey, but as someone who lives in this space, when I hear stories of people entering diagnoses into a model, that's really concerns me.
Yeah. And just like one quick comment too, like what I what I love about it is like you may all have all these ideas and for things that you want to do, maybe ways to improve stuff. I love that like you can use it to like actually bring those things into fruition.
Yeah.
And like, hey, if you're really, hell bent on wanting to create something, and it's such a great tool for doing that, especially if,
Mhm.
a piece of technology or software, uh, because it's so good at coding and programming. Um, yeah, yeah, I love using it for that. Like just, if you have an idea, man, it'll help you, you know, create that idea. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Uh, It's like, you know what? Now I have more ideas of how to use it. See, you learn stuff every day. But the first step is just playing with it. And um, like I said, trust week, start small, right? I think that's a good approach to life, right? Starting small. But especially in AI and privacy, whether you're building a program, start with basics. Whether, if you're trying to build an AI model, start by using it, right? So I think starting small, there's nothing wrong with that. So I think we've come to the cookie review. How is your cookie, Derek?
Yeah, I love Oreos. I know a lot of the cookies that I've gotten on here are Oreos, but I really dig the Thin Mints. Um, yeah, it's almost like eating chips, and it's not too heavy um, as well. But I can imagine it looks like
It's
it's a lot.
amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing. Um, well, Crumble changes their flavors every week. So, like, I don't think this is here. I bought them yesterday. I bought it yesterday. So I don't know if that was the beginning of the week. I think it was the end of the week. Um, this is, if you like pumpkin pie, this is incredible. Like, this is where it's at. It's amazing.
awesome.
So good. All right. Well, do we have any parting words for our listeners?
Have a beautiful day. And if you're not familiar with AI, as Amanda said, start small.
All right. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.
Take care.